Hello, welcome to this week's edition of WCS Sports Connection. I'm your co-host, Jimmy Qualls, and with us, as always, a resident football expert, Tate Mathews. Tate, week one is in the books, and it just goes to show how little we know.
Yeah, without a doubt. We missed on some. That's okay. That's good.
I know as much about football predictions as I do being a quarterback. I'm a pretty good one.
Yeah, you are.
But in this case, we were way off on some of these games. So let's dive straight into it. We look at the Battle of 840 Page, Fairview, which brings up the play of the week. Interesting. Michael Burdick on this play right out of here on a screen out pass, rollout pass rather, from Cade Walker for the first touchdown in the history of the new turf at Page High School.
Pretty cool, man. It was that field looked good. Game day was there. We had a great time. Dr. Jones, man, you had called him out, told him he better bring it. He brought it. I thought he was great on game day in Pick'ems. But great play right here. What's fun about it is we talked about it before the game. Michael Burdick's a guy that can change the game, and that's what he did on this play.
See Burdick in motion here. There he goes.
Walker again rolled. He's got Burdick. Burdick breaks out free from the tackle. Down the sideline, weaving his way, and Michael Burdick. They talked about him before the game, the big play receiver. And he certainly picked up the big play right there. So Michael Burdick with the first score of this 2018 football season.
Started that play off going into the flat there and broke one tackle, and he had a couple guys on the outside there. We were able to block for him. Going to the end zone, just a great play, great team play all around for the Page offense.
As you can see on the play, as he rolls out, he hits him on that short pass you mentioned earlier. It should have been about a 5-yard gain, a couple missed tackles. Next thing you know, he's all the way to the house. It's a testament to how good a player he is. Also, you know, that kind of stuff as a coach, you look at that, Coach Hughes, it has to drive him nuts.
Yep.
That's early season woes. You're missing tackles here and there. You got to tighten those things up for success later on down the road.
Yep, and that's what that play's for. You had the two outside guys running them off, and then you hit him on a little out route. And the first thing I noticed was a great throw by Cade Walker. He hits him in stride to where when he did get hit, you know, he was in an athletic stance and wasn't, you know, reaching back and all that. Gave him a chance. He hit him with the ball where he could give him a chance to make a play, which is what he did. And then good job by the two outside guys. They laid off a couple of blocks. No reason to have that thing called back with a penalty. And then Michael, you know, kept his balance, which, you know, he's a heck of an athlete and takes it to the house. That was a big part of the game. But first thing was I thought it was a great throw by Cade.
Cade Walker ended up the night 12 of 15 for 196 yards. He had a huge 30-yard plus bomb late in the second half for a touchdown. Page wins the Battle of 840, 28-20, breaks the curse of the alternating back and forth years. What are some highlights from the Fairview side?
Well, what you knew, Cam Harris-Lusk is a playmaker. They put him out at wide receiver this year, obviously with Brock Harris transferring into school, and Cam moving over to wide receiver. He had 108 receiving yards on 13 receptions. That's a lot of receptions. And then mid-20s rushing yards, but 2 rushing touchdowns. So the other thing is Brock Harris was 22 of 34 for 267 yards passing. They moved the ball, and I think that was one of the quotes that you saw in the paper by Coach Hughes. We moved the ball, we just couldn't get across the end zone. So the passing game is fine. They just got to find a way to get in the end zone. Then Blake Russell had 6 receptions for 87 yards. So Cam Harris-Lusk, playmaker, we knew that. They're finding a way to get him the ball. They moved the ball. And then Nardozzi had over 100 yards rushing. So they had lots of yards. They just didn't have lots of points, and they gave him up. And back to Page, you were talking about Cade Walker. He had 3 touchdown passes and 1 touchdown run. And 2 of those were to Burdick. And then that 30-yarder you were talking about was to Miles Bond. He played really well, just a junior. He's going to be a good quarterback.
Well, you mentioned that earlier before we took the air is the fact that Fairview controlled the ball predominantly for almost all of the second half and just couldn't capitalize on those scores. The rain came late, mid-third quarter, late third quarter, all the way pretty much to the fourth. It had a little bit of an effect, ball being a little slippery, but you know what? The field would look great. held up. Obviously, the kids still cutting just like they, like it was not a drop on the field, which is the benefits of playing on that turf. But you still have to secure the ball and take care of that. I think we know this. We obviously know this, but what this game means to this student body, to both. You talk about game day. You look at how many kids showed up. Patriot Country showed up, man, all the way to the top, side-to-side field with students. Had a great time at that. But then after the game's over, you go up and you huddle up, and I listen to Coach Rathbone in his speech post-game, and the student body's around, the parents around them. I mean, this game really means a lot to that program and both programs.
Well, without a doubt. And until Nolensville came, they were the two that weren't in the 5A, 6A. Now Page is up there, but it's kind of been their, it's their version of Franklin Brentwood. It's their version of Summit Independence. It just happens to be farther apart. And the Battle of 840 just gives it a cool nickname, but it is. They're both kind of out, now that the county's growing, but they were kind of out in the rural communities for so many years of it. And it's been such an even matchup too. One of the things you brought up in game day was going into this game, Coach Rathbone was 3-3 in it, and Coach Hughes was 5-6 in it, and they've split the last 10 games, and I can't remember what the points you came down to, but it was less than 20 points in the past few years. So it's a competitive rivalry, and it is. It's big to the communities. Speaking of Brentwood Franklin, the granddaddy of them all, held up to its name, to the billing of this particular game. Brentwood edges out the Rebels 17-14. What do we know about this game? Well, what we talked about, I think the number one thing is I think Franklin's better. We thought they were going to be better than what last year was, and I think they're better than a lot of people maybe outside of the county thought they are. But you can always throw the records out in this game. This game's always competitive. Coach Crawford and Coach Webb, obviously the cast change every few years, and they're doing things a little bit different than they used to, but they both know each other so well. There's no telling how many times they've gone up against each other when you go back to Coach Webb's time as the defense coordinator before he became the head coach. So you knew it was going to be competitive, and it was. And then, Franklin was up in the second half, had a chance to win it. Just a great game. Joshua Nichols played really well. I tell you what, this is how even this game was. Thanks to Coach Webb. He sends us the stats, so, we get a chance to look at them. Brentwood ran 56 offensive plays. Franklin ran 55. That's pretty even right there, right? And, it's a 30-point game. But Joshua Nichols played really well, had over 142 yards in passing and had 2 touchdowns, so it's nice to see that. Matt Gacka was, he was reliable and sturdy. You're not going to rush for a whole lot of yards on this Brentwood game. And then Chancellor Bright, the young man we were talking about, not a whole lot of yards, but had a touchdown. So that was exciting on that side. The thing that I think, if I'm Coach Webb, the defense, those 2 explosive wide receivers, and then you throw Walker Merrill in there too. But Bishop and Williams, they really kept them in check. I think they held the Bishop and Williams under 50 yards, or I know under 60 yards total receiving. So got to be very happy about that because they're going to see some other really good duos. And then on the Brentwood side, I know Cade Granzow, we didn't really know where they were going to go with the quarterback position. He looks like he played pretty much the whole game and played well, got better as it went on. He's going to be, he's an athletic young man. He's going to be really good. He had 121 yards in passing, but not very many incompletions. Got better as the game went on. And then my man, Tabor Miller, field goal, kicked the winning field goal.
How much time was left?
I don't know, but still, it was big.
Well, at that point in time, obviously, during the third quarter, Franklin led in this game, 14-7. Brentwood came back and scored, make 14-14, the field goal was kicked. The only points in the fourth quarter, you mentioned Cade Granzow. 6 different receivers touched the ball.
That's right.
6 different completions. Bishop led the way with 37 yards. Walker Merrill, recent Vanderbilt offered Walker Merrill 32 yards, leading the way with those 2, but 6 different Bruins.
That's right.
That receiving core is going to be special. On when they're not playing a doctor defense-led team, imagine how many yards they can amass.
Well, and Jordan Nicholas rushed for 93 yards and had 2 touchdowns. I can't remember what his average per carry was, but it was like 7.2. So that goes to show with that passing game, they've got a running game that goes with it.
You go back to, I feel like we're beating a dead horse. You go back to that 3 years ago Indy team. You open it up for that run game to really, really shine because of the fact you've got the receivers and the quarterback to throw it. They continue doing this. Jordan Nichols will need to buy them, you know, how in the pros they buy them rings or buy them cars for the linemen. He needs to take care of those receivers because he's going to have a lot of touches and a lot of wide open space to maneuver in because of the fact they're opening outside those outside edges. You look at, I don't want to get too far ahead, you look at this game against Cane Ridge, Athletic City. What kind of secondary defense do they have and what kind of night matchup that will be? We'll talk about that in a minute.
Be fun.
Moving on, Ravenwood, big-time winner, 35-28 over Centennial. Centennial was up at one point this time, 21-0. Man, what a comeback for the Raptors. What do we know about this game and how it unfolded?
Well, this is one that I don't think very many people gave Centennial much of a chance.
Including us.
And so what a great game. We knew they'd have a good game plan, but they really came out and executed it well. But on the Ravenwood side, I mean, the number one thing is they're down 28-14 at halftime. The final was 35-28. They come out and scored 21 unanswered points in the second half. So, one, they kept fighting back, and they kind of figured their offense out second half. But even more importantly than that was the defense not giving up any points in the second half.
Not only that, how many yards rushing Centennial had in the first half?
Over 100.
257 yards rushing.
Wow.
You know how many yards they finished out with?
267.
256.
Wow. That's strong.
Minus 1 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
That shows the difference in that whatever halftime adjustments they made, the Raptors made, did something different. I mean, obviously.
Without a doubt. And it goes to show how talented they are. But so the 21 unanswered points, Brian Garcia, 3 touchdowns. He had 281 yards passing, 22 for 31. Obviously, when you're down, you're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And then Holmes, 6 receptions, 98 yards, 3 touchdowns. Anthony Holmes. That's the other duo, or one of the other duos we've been talking about with Mason and Holmes. Holmes is the one they put him in the slot, find ways to get him the ball. 3 touchdowns. That was huge. So, hey, here's the number one thing with Ravenwood. Week 1, I know they weren't happy about giving up 28 points in the first half, but it's a win. It's a district win, region win.
Big time.
It's big. And obviously we know what happened with the rest of their season last year. So they're explosive. We knew that. They got to find out whatever it was that let them get down that much early on. I'm sure they will. On the other side, Centennial, Jariel Wilson.
Special.
First play of the game, opening kickoff, touchdown. He might be the most explosive guy, and there's a lot of them. So I don't take that lightly, but he might be the most explosive guy in this conference. What a player he is.
Like we said, though, we got to find – I feel like the Cougars have to find 1 or 2 more offensive weapons to use outside of Jariel for them to have that balanced attack, you know, and keep going forward because, you know, you don't want to be one-dimensional, obviously.
Right.
You've got to find that one other person.
Well, and you have to have him on defense too. So, but I think maybe we have. Grayson Marcel, the quarterback, he hit Joey Gustafson for a 76-yard touchdown. And again, this is against guys on Ravenwood. It ain't like these guys can't run, right? And he hit him for a 76-yard touchdown, hit him for another long one. So I know, you know, the Centennial Cougars are, gosh, I can't imagine what this weekend was like. They're licking their wounds. And just they were so close. But there were a lot of positives that came out of that. So obviously they found a passing attack, and you know they'll keep getting better. That was a statement game. That wasn't a fluke. I mean, they came out and played their tails off.
Energy. Felt like they were overlooked. They had already won that game last year. You think Ravenwood would have that game circled, maybe just kind of came out a little flat. But then whatever happened at halftime, whatever nice speech Coach Daniels gave those guys to get them pepped up, changed the entire complexity of the game. I mean, to come out and score 3 times in the fourth quarter and do what they did, 31 pass attempts. Well, we see the Raptors go at 40 pass attempts for the years out.
Oh, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the other team's scoring, you know. If not, then Garcia's going to be over it eating popcorn. But if it's a close game with points, yeah, they're gonna fling that ball around.
Speaking of Popcorn City, Nolensville has done something that they have never done in the history of that at school.
Started off 1-0.
1-0. Coach Paul Derrick, congratulations to him. I'm so proud for him. 42-28 win over Fayetteville. The score was not even that close at one point in time. It was 42-7, if I'm not mistaken. In the second half, I think they may have subbed some or whatever may happen, but this game was well in hand right off the bat.
Well, the cool thing is, like you said, they're 1-0. Coach Derek gets his first win as a head football coach. Congratulations to him and his staff. That's very cool. And they got to play a lot of people. You're right, they did. They got to play a lot of people. So that was a big deal. Colton Dooley had 5 touchdowns. I don't care who you're playing against.
He played pretty good.
Pretty good. 5 touchdowns, but he had a lot of guys around him. And I know Coach Derek was very excited about that. That was the game plan, was to run the ball. And they did that, and they did it well. And Timmy Stay-School and Zach Campbell and those guys didn't get as many balls thrown to him as they would like to. But one thing I know he was very proud of was them blocking downfield. They were a big part of the running success as well. So those guys played real well. Tim Kuchers had a receiving touchdown and an interception. And then Jeff Weisel came in and managed the game, finished the game off at quarterback. He was very proud. Obviously, Wharton got it started, and then he came in. And, you know, that's something. He got a lot of valuable game experience and a lot of game snaps, and that's a comforting thing, knowing you can take your number 1 guy out and you got a guy who can finish the game out. So all around, just a big deal. And then Coach Derek's side of the ball, the defense forced 4 turnovers. If you're running the ball and can force 4 turnovers, you're going to win a lot of ball games.
A lot of kids hitting hard right there. I mean, you got to think,
Yeah.
we've talked about it on the defensive side. C.J. Ware, Colton Dooley having the type of game that he has. If he can continue doing that in defense, play like they did against Fayetteville, the sky's the limit for this team. We've talked about it. Limit turnovers. How many turnovers did the Nolensville Knights have?
I didn't check, but I don't think any.
That's the key to the game for them. Cannot, particularly interceptions or putting the ball on the floor, putting the ball on the field. Nolensville, 42 points. I have to check the record book. I don't know if that is a record for Nolensville. I think it is.
It's close.
Points total. It's not.
It's close if it's not.
Oh,
the
okay.
Record, yeah.
All right. Well, Nolensville putting up 42 points. We have another fast game on the turf coming back with Page next week, or this week rather. I mean, this game is really interesting when you look at these two teams, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Oakland 46, Independent 7. I think it's a little bit of a shocker for us both. We knew Oakland was going to be a very tough opponent out of Murfreesboro, but we really thought this game would be a little bit closer. It's one of those things, you have a couple of things go wrong and it can pile up on you in a hurry.
Yeah, and they just got beat. I mean, I think that's what Coach Blade would tell you. They got beat, and not a whole lot of positives came out of it. Now, Oakland's really good, and I don't know why. We talked about it on a few shows earlier. I always, if we're going to play these Rutherford County teams, I always like to see them later on in the year for the Wilco guys, but very athletic and got beat on the one thing we were worried about was the line of scrimmages. Obviously, they got beat on that pretty handily.
And we knew that was going to be a tough war.
That's right. I mean, they're good. They're not ranked number 1 in the whatever it is,
mid-state
top 25 poll for nothing. Got a lot of good running backs. Got a lot of good defenders and guys that can run. So I think on the line we really struggled, but T.J. Sheffield had a hard time getting him the ball. Did have a rushing touchdown. I don't know if you saw that highlight. He went one way and then came back all the way across the field for a touchdown. Not very many people can make that play against Oakland. We already knew that he's a special guy, but that was a nice run. And I guess the thing that they can be comforting in, Coach Blade can look at his team and say, we're not going to see anybody like this the rest of the regular season. We're going to see some good teams, but we won't see anybody physically like we just saw from Oakland.
Oakland, Maryville. Looking down the road, everybody's looking for that game.
Well, they play this week, regular season.
They play the regular season, and then they'll have to play each other, barring any unforeseen circumstances happening between now and then, to get into the championship game. I think this week will tell the tale a little bit between those two programs about who's going to be the best. But it's like you said, as this thing progresses later in the season, it tends to favor Maryville usually.
Yeah. Well, history shows that. But you go back at 2 different teams, different programs and all that, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because they're linemen, they have more linemen, bigger, I don't know. But you go back to the Ravenwood years when they won when Coach Hester was there and they won the state championship and got the runner-up. They scrimmaged them both years, and Oakland whipped them both times. I don't know what that is. But then by the end of the year, Oakland, one, is at home because Maryville beat them in the playoffs, and Ravenwood is, an overtime away from winning the first one, and then they win the second one. So I don't know what that is, but I wouldn't. That doesn't mean Independence isn't going to have a great season. They got beat by a really good team in week 1. Period.
Summit, Spring Hill, Battle of the Hill, another moment in history for Coach Coleman, if you will, for the WCS Sports Conference. First time that Summit has beaten Spring Hill in over 4 years. First time in Coach Coleman's career that he's beaten Spring Hill. I called
monkey off the back.
I called Coach Coleman and told him that his contract was being negotiated, whether or not he beat Spring Hill. But he came through for me in good fashion. Won 12-7. Sloppy game, rain, gully washer. It was coming down, but an ugly win is a good win every day. George Odomegwu led the way, 100-plus yards rushing. What do we know about this game?
Well, you're right. It wasn't pretty, but it was a win, and it was one that they've struggled with, so that was good. Odomegwu had 14 rushes for 122 yards and a touchdown. You see 12 points and you think there were field goals. No, there were 2 touchdowns. And then Christian Jolly, I think he started it off with a touchdown reception from Ashton Kelly. So 2 touchdowns, 12 points. What does that mean? We missed 2 extra points. Now, new kicker, we're young. We got to get that figured out. That'll come back and bite you. But
yes,
the defense in Spring Hill, I saw them in the Jamboree. They're athletic now. So Hadrian Phillips is a guy who can and he broke one against them, but he's a guy he's going to rush for a lot of yards this year. So defensive battle. Defense played really well outside of that 1 touchdown, and then what we already knew. If you were wondering, can George Odomegwu carry the load? Yes, he can.
122 yards. It seems like broken record from the last 2 or 3 years, man. It just keeps on. George Odomegwu there for 122 if he keeps this up. Obviously, will be over 1,000. Got a little dinged up. I think he'll be day-to-day. I think he's okay. Speaking of that, let's stay on Summit. Border battle this week. Independence versus Summit. Summit's going to be looking to capitalize off last year's victory, 31-17, over Independence. First time in school history. Independence currently ranked 17th in that said poll that you were talking about a while ago. Summit's ranked 15th in that poll, which I find very interesting. Franklin's 20th. Ravenwood's 4th. We have a lot of these. Obviously, Brentwood is in there at 12th.
I don't know about that.
We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
But you look at this, what's going to happen at Independence? Can Independence get back on the horse after being knocked off by Oakland and get back in the win column against their arch rival, Summit?
Well, sure, because they're not going to see a defensive and offensive line like they just saw last Friday night. And, it was game 1. They're going to be fine. They've got playmakers, and they'll find ways to get them the ball. But first thing I think is Coach Coleman, it's going to be the same kind of deal. I guess when you're watching that Oakland film, you can run the ball against them. But I don't think they're planning on scoring 31 points again this year. It's going to have to be a little bit less than that if they're going to win this year. But it's going to be exactly what you would think. Can they run the ball against Independence, and then can they control that passing attack? If so, they got a good chance to win. If they don't, it's going to be a long night.
Georgia's going to have a big night.
Yep.
No doubt.
No turnovers. I mean, it sounds cliche,
long,
but it's true.
sustained drives. Got to result in scores. Independence, for them to get back, Cisco needs to have a really good game. He needs to get back in confidence going, looking at TJ Sheffield. Obviously, he's going to be shaded, double-teamed wherever he goes. Look for Isaiah Collier, possibly one-on-ones on the outside. Look for that matchup to happen. Ravenwood at Siegel. What are some keys for Ravenwood to continue success?
Don't wait till the second half. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they won't. I mean, Centennial had a lot to do with that. But Siegel's down. They don't have very many numbers. Ravenwood, I think, can run a lot of guys at them. It's going to be Raptor fast. I don't
see any hiccups there.
I don't see anything like what we saw Friday night.
Page, Nolensville. I think this is a coin toss game. Pick 'em of the week. This thing is too close to call if you ask me. I've tried to look at it different ways of who's got the edge, who doesn't. I feel like Nolensville's coming off a really good win, having a lot of points. I know Page is happy to beat Fairview, but Nolensville's not Fairview. I don't know who would win that game if they play.
Right.
But I feel right now, at this given second, Nolensville a little better team than Fairview. What's the keys here?
Well, I think for Nolensville, the same thing. If they can run the ball like they did against Fayetteville, I think that would be good for them. Obviously, you know, Fairview proved you can move the ball on them. They just didn't get points. So if they can run the ball, force turnovers, I think that passing game for Page is pretty potent. They have to control it.
Fairview versus White House Heritage.
Tombstone City. Yeah, there's nothing worse than getting Fairview after a Battle of 840 loss because they will be in a bad mood.
Franklin at Riverdale. It's a good game for Dr. Defense to bounce back. If you ask me, I think that the Rebs, they get back into winning column.
I think that without a doubt.
Brentwood versus Cane Ridge, arguably the best Middle Tennessee game outside. Obviously, you spoke of the Oakland-Maryville game. That's an interesting matchup too. But as far as our games are concerned, Brentwood versus Cane Ridge, athletic city against that Bruins wide receiver core should be a fun one.
Without a doubt. And last year, remember they played this time last year, and Brentwood hammered them. Saw each other again in the playoffs, and obviously came up a little bit short. So you mentioned how athletic Cane Ridge is. Yes, they are. When you see them, buddy, they pass the look test, and they got guys that can run. Good thing about that is you know, sometimes teams like that want to come up and try to play man and things like that. I think if you do that, Granzel takes another step, getting better, and we still have Dylan Stevens in there who can come in and make plays too. Brentwood has the playmakers that can beat those guys, and I think you'll see some big plays.
Cane Ridge coming off a 35-28 overtime win at Marshall County.
Stunned me.
That stunned me as well. Don't know if they just wanted to show up and think they could win or what happened there. But Centennial versus Hendersonville. Hendersonville getting beat 28-10 by Blackman. Centennial obviously trying to come back from that Ravenwood loss.
Got to keep it back up. Hendersonville's good. They got beat by a really good Blackman team. Going to run the wing tee. Nolensville got a very up-close look at that in the spring. Assignment football, right? So we got to keep our heads up at Centennial. This could be a game. They come back and get 1-1. I think they'd be very happy about that, but it's a tough game. All
right, we're going to get to it. The pick'ems for this week. Mr. Producer's going to have to tell us who's in the lead. I'm pretty sure it's awful close this week. Ravenwood at Siegel, who do you have?
Oh, Ravenwood.
Easy. Border battle. You'll have to wait until we get there. WCS game day will be there. We'll let you know who won that battle. Page at Nolensville. This is coin flip city. Who do you have?
I think Page.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think Nolo is coming off this big win. Got a little bit of a win hangover, if you will, from the Fairview game. Nolensville wins this one.
This is going to be a great rivalry through the years.
It will be. Fairview versus White House Heritage.
Popcorn City.
Popcorn City. No reason to even discuss it. Franklin at Riverdale.
Franklin.
I think I agree with you. Not Popcorn City, but I think by 2+ touchdowns, Franklin wins this game. Brentwood, Cane Ridge.
I think Brentwood.
I think Brentwood puts a very big statement win up early this year. Now, remember, they won early last year, end up losing the second round of playoffs, but I still think this game right here is a statement win for the Brew Winds. Centennial, Hendersonville.
I think Centennial. I really do.
Do you really?
Yeah, they can score points now.
Coach Creisy, I really do believe Centennial wins this game against Hendersonville. Mr. Producer, where did we mess up?
All right, guys. Tabor Miller hit that field goal with 1:46 left in the game. And Nolensville did have 42 last year versus Tullahoma.
Oh, man, I thought that was
tied it.
So they tied it.
Yeah.
Well,
so you were kind of right.
It is, yeah. Well, it's always a lot of fun, man, to be back in that in the saddle of football. Week 2, hard to believe. Week 2 already rolling here.
Unbelievable.
We'll come back later this week with the Coaches Preview Show with your 2 favorite coaches, Coach Blade and Coach Coleman. That should be a fun one.
Without a doubt.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.